CBS Sports HQ, and to Jonathan Jones's point, we have football on Friday night in the NFL. We have it almost every night in the NFL, it feels like. We got the Chargers and the Chiefs opening up the regular season for those teams in Brazil. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs finished last season atop the division, a 15-2 record, and their 10th straight trip to the playoffs. The Chargers, meanwhile, finishing right behind the Chiefs. I feel like that's something we say all the time in the standings at 11-6. But making it to the NFL wildcard round in Harbaugh's first year as head coach of the team. So kickoff, you see it there, 8 p.m. Eastern on Friday from Brazil. And the Chiefs have a pretty solid record when it comes to international games. You see it laid out here. Only the Vikings are better at 4-0, but the Chiefs sitting there at 3-0. When it comes to the Chargers, not the best, 1-2 all time in international series games. All right, we have Douzable back with us here on set. We're going to preview this Friday night matchup with the Chargers and the Chiefs here. KC has won 7 straight games against the Chargers, and we're going to talk about Patrick Mahomes, his record against Justin Herbert, 7-1. Everything is going in the Chiefs' direction, but how do the Chargers change the narrative here, Lige?
They have to be able to finish games. A lot of these games, when it comes to Jay Herbo versus Patrick Mahomes, they always dwindle down to the end, and it's all about execution. To me, that's was what the Chiefs' superpower was last year, right? They out-executed everybody. Like, they didn't scare you on paper when you look at them from their talent standpoint, but they have Patrick Mahomes, and he seems to always make plays at the end of the game. So if you're the Chargers, right, your left tackle goes down, which is a big concern, right? You brought in some new talent at the receiver position through the draft. You brought an old friend in Keenan Allen. You got to be able to, if you're Justin Herbert, you got to be sick and tired of saying Patrick Mahomes is my daddy. He owns me. Like that has to like ring in his head every year, especially because it's a divisional foe.
Yeah.
Those are the games that you have to win. The easiest way to win the division is to win divisional games. So this is a big game in week 1. Yes, it's week 1. But it's a divisional game, and to your point, right, 1-7. That's what you are versus Patrick Mahomes. That's what your record says. That's what your resume says. Only Justin Herbert can change that.
And to your point about these being close games, whenever it's Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert, 6 of those 8 games between these two quarterbacks have featured a lead change in the final minute of either the fourth quarter or overtime. Do you think we're going to get another one of those close games where we're like on the edge of our seats until the final, couple of minutes, or whether it's an OT?
I think this will be close, but I'll give my pick later on in this segment.
Don't spoil it.
Yeah, I'm not going to spoil it. I think this will be close, but I don't think it'll be a lead change in the last minute of the game. Now, divisional games will always come down to the wire, and it's always interesting in the beginning of the year because teams are still trying to figure out who they are the first couple of weeks, especially with certain teams playing in preseason. Now, both of these teams and these head coaches are synonymous with playing their guys in preseason, so they should start off the season a lot faster than a majority of the NFL, and both of these teams know each other really well. So it's a divisional game. It'll be close, but I don't think it'll come down to the last minute like it has in the past.
Okay, let's get to the wideouts because we have some situations. You alluded to one already with the Chargers bringing back an old friend in Keenan Allen. And then for the Chiefs, Rashee Rice, he's not going to be out there. He's suspended for the first 6 games of this season. How much are both of those situations going to impact the game plan?
I mean, it's massive. I would say throughout the first 3 weeks of the season, Rashee Rice was proven he was a true number 1 receiver. And people were wondering who was going to be the number 1 guy for the Chiefs. He proved it through those first 3 weeks. Then he goes down with injury, and now obviously he has a suspension and is going to miss a good portion of the beginning of the season. So that was somebody that Patrick Mahomes had built up a lot of trust and faith in. And there was rumors that he was going to start the season and not be suspended until maybe later on in the season. So that I think was a gut punch for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now Hollywood Brown dealt with some injuries throughout preseason. Looks like he will be ready to go. We see Xavier Worthy. They're going to look for him to take that next step, to be the guy, because Rashee Rice isn't there, because Hollywood Brown is dealing with some ailments. Travis Kelce is getting up there in age. So it's going to be incumbent on Xavier Worthy to take that step. And I would say the back half of the season in the playoffs and even in the Super Bowl in a losing effort, he showed that you can depend on him. He's a guy that can blow the top off the defense. Adversely, let's go to the Chargers. They bring that old friend back in Keenan Allen. Now, it'll be interesting to see how Coach Roman and also Jim Harbaugh use his skill set, because I think for the latter part of his season, he's been really effective in the slot. Well, they have one of the better receivers in the slot in all the NFL in Ladd McConkey, who proved that he's on that tier of being a number 1 receiver as well, and also had the respect of his players. They named him a top 100 player as a rookie last year. So it'll be interesting to see what Jim Harbaugh and Coach Roman do with their skill sets together. You got Quentin Johnson on the outside. Then you have those 2 young guys that you drafted as well, and Trey Harris and Keandre Lambert-Smith as well. So they have more firepower on that side of the ball. When you talk about passing-wise, this is a team that is synonymous with running the ball, but I think they could open it up and pass a little bit more this year.
You mentioned the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and we felt like we could rely on Xavier Worthy as like the guy from that experience. Something else that we saw from that Super Bowl appearance is that we know what happens when you get to Patrick Mahomes, right? And that O-line just cannot protect him. Both of these teams have some interesting situations that they're dealing with the O-line, right? You kind of talked about Slater out for the season. That was huge for the Chargers there, a big blow for them. And then for KC, they go out and get Josh Simmons in the first round of the draft, hoping that's their left tackle of the future, right? So which of these offensive lines do you have more questions about, or do you think you'll learn more about in game one?
There's questions about both of them.
Yeah.
A little bit more comfortable because of the pedigree and the history of Andy Reid with the Chiefs offensive line. Let's not forget, the first time Patrick Mahomes got destroyed in the Super Bowl was versus the Bucs. What they do, they refortify that offensive line, Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith the next year. So they bring in Josh Simmons this year. And I've seen clips at practice with him dominating. Now, through the preseason, had some ups and downs, and you expect that for a rookie left tackle, right? Jalen Moore and Jawan Taylor there. I've heard that Jalen Moore may potentially start at right tackle. And if you look at preseason, there was times where Josh Simmons and Jalen Moore were in, and they were the bookend tackles because Jawan Taylor has really struggled since coming over from Jacksonville and being the right tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. There's been issues with pre-snap penalties for him. There's been holding penalties against him, and he really struggled in that Super Bowl as well. So could Jalen Moore potentially be that right tackle that's the starter, and then Jawan Taylor be the backup, which would give them more depth on the offensive line? Adversely, you look at the LA Chargers, right? Trey Pipkins is going to right tackle. They're going to move their right tackle, Joe Alt, to left tackle. Now, Lil Birdie told me, and I had boots on the ground during training camp, he had already been cross-practicing at left tackle, Joe Alt, that is. Remember, he was a stalwart at left tackle at Notre Dame before being drafted to the Chargers. And because they have Rashawn Slater, they moved him to right. So he's very proficient at the left tackle position. But look for this matchup in this game. Chris Jones is known to go up against the weakest offensive lineman, and right now that's Trey Pipkins. He's an interior defensive lineman, Chris Jones, but he will move to the edge in this game versus Trey Pipkins and try to take advantage of him. If Trey Pipkins can hold up, this could be an interesting game. All
right, and we also have some big news for the run game here because Najee Harris is expected to play. He missed most of all of camp because of a firework incident. He was dealing with an eye injury, but how big of a boost is that for the Chargers? We were just hearing about like Omari and Hampton, excuse me, but with Najee Harris in there, what are you expecting for him?
Well, that's the interesting thing. We'll see where he is health-wise, right? Because anytime you're dealing with an eye, you kind of worry about sweat potentially getting in the eye. And then also, what's his conditioning like? You said it, Jacqueline. He hasn't participated in training camp, but it is a boost because you pair him with Omari and Hampton. You have one of the most physical backfields in all of football. Greg Roman, obviously Jim Harbaugh, synonymous. We're going to run the ball down your throat. So when you have, two backs that can get downhill in a hurry, it opens up so much more, especially the play-action pass game for Justin Herbert. And it also takes pressure off that offensive line. We talked about Rashawn Slater not being there. If they're able to run the ball, that will help them in play-action pass. That'll give the offense some more time to block guys up front because they're thinking it's run, to latch on some of those defensive guys for Justin Herbert to take shots down the field. So it's a big boost. I just want to know in what capacity is he at health-wise, right? Conditioning-wise, and then sweating. Like, is that going to affect the eye because he had the eye injury?
Yeah. All right. So let's get a pick. We kind of alluded to it. We saved the best for last. Chiefs 3-point favorites. The total sitting at 45 and a hook. Give us a game pick, Leger.
I'm taking the Kansas City Chiefs -3. I think they'll cover the 3 points. You talked about it earlier. 3-0 in international waters. Yeah. They out-execute everybody. The injury to left tackle is really going to affect the Chargers. I think Chris Jones takes advantage of Trey Pipkins. I believe they win this game, not by 3, but by at least 5 points in this game. I just think, again, he's owned Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes. He's 7-1 against them. Only Justin Herbert can change that narrative, but I'm going to go with history right now. I'm taking the Kansas City Chiefs -3 to cover the 3 points.
All right, so Leger says Patrick Mahomes is going to be 8-1 against Justin Herbert after this matchup. We'll see what happens. It's on Friday from Brazil. And, of course, we have a loaded Week 1 slate, and it all kicks off on Thursday with the Cowboys and the Eagles. Eagles 8.5-point favorites. We just talked about the Chiefs and the Chargers. And then, of course, on CBS on Sunday, the Lions and the Packers, where Micah Parsons is expected to make his Green Bay debut.